Okay, I'm going to show you how to make a mesh arrowhead lace panel. And you can use this panel for anything. You can make a light scarf with it. I'm going to be actually adding it to a shimmy skirt, or you can create it as a wrap for summer around your hips and that kind of thing. So it can be used for a number of things. And so we're combining two different lace stitches, and I believe this is the long arrowhead stitch that I'm going to be showing you, okay? And there's a small one if you go online, but you're going to get, you're not going to have a video of this. So this is a traditional knit stitch here, and this is this version here of the mesh lace stitch I'm actually getting from Renee Van Hoy's Stitch Dictionary, one of her Stitch Dictionary books, and I will put a link below for it specifically. And again, if you want to find the arrowhead, it's written out in traditional knit. I believe somebody else had done it on the Loom. Obviously you can do it on the Loom, but she never put out a video for it, okay? And so this is going to show you how to go in and do that. Alright, so I have actually cast on 45 stitches, which is an odd number, and I'm using a 3/8 inch gauge, excuse me, and I've cast on 45. And so what I want to do is I want to put a stitch marker on peg 12, okay, from the ends. So count over 12, put a stitch marker, count over 12, put a stitch marker. This is the section you will be doing the mesh lace. The arrowhead stitch will be done in the middle, and we're doing two sets of the arrowhead, okay, and with a single connector in the middle, and that is a total of 21 stitches. And of course you put a stitch marker on your middle one that separates the two sets of the arrowhead stitch, which is going to be, you're going to count starting from the peg after your stitch marker here. You're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. You're going to place a stitch marker there. So count 12 over, place a stitch marker, 12 over, place a stitch marker. Start from here, count 11 over, put a stitch marker on 11, okay? Now, to get started with this, because I'm not showing you from the beginning, what you'll want to do is you'll want to simply go and do a cast on of your preference, okay? And then you are going to want to do your first row of knit. Alright, so you're pretty much going to start off immediately with the stitch patterning. Alright, as you can see, it starts off immediately. I did my cast on, and my first row is a knit, which is where we're starting. This is a 4-row set between the two, okay? So it's not going to be as difficult as you think. So what you want to do for your first row is we're slipping that first stitch, and we're just going to knit our way over to the other side. So right after you cast on, just go ahead and start your stitch patterning, and your first row is going to be a knit. And I'm always knitting my last stitch and slipping my first stitch. But you kind of have to calculate it in when doing the stitch patterning too. But that last stitch is going to be adjusted. Okay, so that is row 1. We're going to be ready to start row 2. Okay, starting row 2, what you're going to do is you're going to slip that first stitch and you're going to purl over to your stitch marker. So you're going to slip 1 and purl 11 stitches. Okay. Okay, and I'm purling one more. Alright, now we're going to be starting the arrowhead stitch patterning. And what you want to do is you want to knit your first stitch. Then you want to decrease by picking up the next stitch and moving it over to the next peg. Okay. Then you want to yarn over the front of the peg, that empty peg, and you're going to knit 2 together. Okay. Then you're going to take that next stitch and you're going to do that again. You're going to lift it, put it onto the next peg, yarn over, knit the 2 together. You do it twice, then you're going to knit 1. Okay, and what you'll notice is that this half tends to move towards the center. Well, in order to do that, there's 2 ways of doing this. You can lift and hold this stitch and put this stitch underneath it and then place it back and knit the 2 together, or you can do this method where you don't risk losing hold of the stitch at all. I take this stitch, I put it on top of the next, I go in, and it doesn't matter whether it's in front, you're fixing to move the stitch over, so I usually go from behind. You're going to toss both those loops over, then you're going to lift that stitch and move it to the previous peg, and then I usually like to snug it up. Okay, then you're going to yarn over, and then you're going to do it again. You're going to lift up this next stitch and move it over to the next peg. Okay, you're going to go up behind that empty peg and you're going to toss both loops over. Then you're going to move it back 1 peg. And what that does, it saves you from the possibility of losing. And then you're going to yarn over, and then you're going to knit 1. Okay? This completes your first set of the arrowhead. Now we're going to go into our second set, and this knit is your connector. So what you want to do is you want to lift that next stitch, move it over, yarn over, knit the 2 together, do it again, go to the next stitch, move it over, yarn over, knit the 2 together, knit 1. Then we're going to do the decrease is going to start leaning the stitches towards the other direction so that it looks more like an arrow. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to lift that next stitch, move it over, go behind that empty peg so that you know you have to move the stitch over, toss both those loops over, and move that stitch back 1, and make sure that you snug it up so it looks clean. You're going to yarn over, that next peg. Then you go to the next peg, and you're going to decrease it over. Okay, you go behind that empty peg, and then you're going to toss both loops over. Then what you're going to do is move that stitch you just created over one, and then you're going to snug it up. Okay, and then you're going to yarn over and knit one to complete the arrowhead section. Okay, so that's the second row of the arrowhead section. At this point, you're going to purl your way over. So you're going to purl 11 and then knit the last stitch. Okay. And then knit your last stitch. Okay. Now we're ready to start on row 3 of our 4-row set. Okay, we're ready to start row 3 of our 4-row set. So what we want to do is slip that first stitch, and what we want to do is knit the next stitch, and then we're going to lift that up. We're going to move that over to the next peg. Then we're going to toss the bottom loop over, and then we're going to knit the next peg. Okay. Then we're going to knit the next peg. We're going to lift up that stitch, move it over to the next peg, and toss the bottom loop over. Then knit one. Alright, and you're going to go in and you're going to knit one, move that over one, toss the bottom loop over, and knit one. You're going to do that again. You're going to knit one, and as you can see, there's your stitch marker. You're just going to try not to drop your hook. You're going to lift up that stitch, move it over one, toss the bottom loop over. You stop with your mesh stitch at this point on this side, and what you should have is 1 empty, 2 empty, 2 empty, 2 empty, 1. Okay? And you basically created 4 holes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? Now, the next section to go over the arrowhead section for the row 3, you're going to knit over those 21 pegs. And I suggest you kind of knit loose because you're going to be decreasing again on these stitches, and you're going to need that extra give room. So what I like to do in order to make sure that I'm knitting loose is to lift that stitch up and pull it back into the middle of the loom. And don't put any pressure on the working yarn, so don't be pulling on it, just kind of lay it where it needs to be. You can see the stitches are loose. Okay, we're going to be yanking on them stitches to do some decreasing, alright? So you want to definitely knit loose. Okay, and now we're to our other stitch marker. Okay, and so what we want to do now is we want to knit that stitch, lift it, go back to the mesh stitch, move it over to the next peg, toss the bottom loop over, knit the next stitch. This is your repeat if you're wondering. So you want to knit the next stitch, lift it up, move it over to the next peg, toss that bottom loop over, and then knit the next stitch. Knit, move, toss the bottom loop over, and knit one, and then knit one again, lift it up, move it over one, and knit the bottom loop over, and of course knit that last stitch. Alright, you should now have 4 openings as well. So it should be 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we're now ready to start our last row of the 4-row set. Okay, so let's get that done, and then you're just going to repeat these 4 rows over and over again. Okay, starting row 4, you're going to slip that first stitch, and you're going to purl, and on those empty pegs you're going to yarn over to the front, then you're going to purl 2, you're going to yarn over on the front of the empty peg, purl 2, yarn over, purl 2, and you're going to yarn over. At this point you're starting the arrowhead stitch, so you want to knit 2 pegs. 1, 2. Then you're going to lift up that stitch, move it over 1 peg, yarn over, and knit the 2 stitches together. Then you're going to go to the next stitch, you're going to lift it up, put it over. Then you're going to go and skip that. You're going to pick up this stitch, you're going to lift it up and pull it over. You should have an empty peg on either side of this peg that has 3 stitches. You're going to yarn over, and you're going to knit all 3 stitches together. Then you're going to yarn over. Then you're going to lift up this next stitch, you're going to take it over one, go behind that empty peg, knit both those stitches over, take it over back to that previous peg, snug it up. Okay, then you're going to go in and you're going to knit 3. 1, 2, and 3. And this is how you repeat it. But now if you're doing a single one, you're just going to knit the 2 and stop, okay? But because we have our connector point here, which is what that is, you're only going to knit the 1 rather than would be 4. So you're knitting 3. Okay, you're going to decrease, yarn over, knit the 2 together. Then you're going to decrease over, then you're going to skip that stitch, pick up this one, and decrease over. Yarn over, knit the 3 stitches together, and yarn over. Then you're going to lift up that next stitch, you're going to move it over one, go behind that empty peg, toss both loops over, and then move that stitch back one. Then you're going to go in and snug it up. And then you're going to yarn over, and then knit 2. You see, here's your stitch marker. You've now completed that arrowhead stitch area. Now you're just going to purl, yarn over, purl 2, yarn over, purl 2, yarn over, purl 2, and then yarn over and then knit that last stitch, as we've been doing. That is how you do this patterning with the mesh lace and the long arrowhead together in a panel. And it should lay flat, okay, after blocking, because of the garter stitch kind of work done to it, okay, over here on the ends and stuff. So you repeat this 4-row set over and over and over again, and this is what you should get, okay? So you can make it however long you want. You can use it as a scarf, you can use it as a number of things. You can use it as a head wrap for like a little headband. So it's a wide open panel as to what you can use it for. Alright, and that is how you do the mesh lace long arrowhead panel.